the force main. So that's been accounted for as well. But this is at least a depiction of what that sewer shed looks like, so you get an idea.
Did you take into consideration of the industrial park?
We did. Yep, and that's actually including the American flows too, because I know there was some recent development coming up there. So again, I think we started with the 2019 study looking at from the Four Corners area down to the Route 24 exchange, picking that up and then discharging into a force main on South Main that would convey that flow down. I know you guys do have some existing, there is some existing sewer infrastructure down near the Fall River Town line, the Stop and Shop pump station. It currently pumps into the 4-inch main out there. And then there's that existing 8 that Resendes had put in that just capped and left in place. So that's kind of leading me to my next topic here, which is the force main itself. So Will and I, after the last meeting, took a look at some of those flows that were provided in the development from the developers, and then looking at, the Crystal Springs area. And one of the things that we looked at was the velocities in that 8-inch main, whether or not we could reutilize that 8. And this goes back to our discussion about build out and future expansion, right? So using the additional flows, we added that to what we were going to pick up in the sewer shed. And as of right now, it still seems like we're short in terms of sizing for that 8-inch main. Velocities just aren't that high. You're putting, minimal amount of flow here into an 8-inch main. So I understand, obviously, there's obviously a cost to go with slip lining it, which is how we originally approached this. I'd love to tell you, yeah, we have the flow and we're going to see it and it's going to work the way it's intended. But I think right now the flow numbers that we're coming up with aren't justifying hydraulically that the 8-inch is a good fit.
What size do you think that you need to do with what flow you have?
6 inches is what we recommend. Now, I can understand.
Versus an 8, right?
Right. And I think right now, we could design it for the 8 and utilize the existing main that's there and just oversize the pump station. Just hydraulically, it's not the best way we would normally approach it, right? Normally, you're sizing your force main and putting in something that's appropriate based on what you're seeing for flows. In this case, you'd be almost sizing it based on what you have in the ground today, which again was installed 15-ish years ago.
Can you slip line an 8-inch with a 6-inch? That's tight.
It is tight. It is doable. We just did a job in Marshfield where you can we slipped line a 16 inside of an 18. So the big thing there is just if there's any bends or any sort of crossings, you can't obviously slip line that. So you're either talking remove and replace or doing a separate directional drill pit. But there is obviously value in slip lining versus open cut trench, because now you're talking about almost, what was it, Will, like 4,000 feet or so, 5,000 feet?
Yeah, it's a super long stretch so what you see on the map over the blue stretch from where the pump station is all the way down to the Fall River town line. That will be slip lining versus open trench
Right.
excavation.
So I mean, just
Versus us just saying, no, we're gonna use the 8-inch and design the pump.
right. Yeah, that's the other alternative that we're trying to
What are we
get the
talking
answer
for
to.
the offers?
So, I mean, we can come up with that number, Deb. Yeah.
Because I'm inclined to say no.
You just want to stick with the 8 and size it based on that.
Yeah,
Okay.
but I don't wanna be the end all be all. I wanna.
Right. No, I mean, like I said, Deb,
we
we,
need to continue to have that conversation because I think their dollars are gonna be big.
sure.
And I think, I don't like the slip lining because I think there is gonna be areas, I mean, I almost rather just replace, put a whole new line in rather than trying to slip line an existing line where now we're cutting parts of it out, go over. I think that creates grief. I'm almost tempted, like I said, my first inclination is to say, no, use the 8-inch and size the pump station for the 8.
So as far as creating sufficient flow, so we're efficient as far as pumping it Fall River. Do we know how Fall River will bill us on or are they gonna bill us based on the density of the waste?
What do they bill you now?
They bill gallon.
I think it's just totalizer, yeah.
Yeah.
Totalized gallons. because
Correct.
If it was an option to supplement the flow, we had bleeder pits that we run.
Yeah, what?
Our bleeder pits, but
Oh.
those are seasonal, that's part of the problem.
Yeah,
We could divert some of that into the sewer, but we certainly would want to pay, for increased gallons, if it was a question of.
well, that's, then we would have to negotiate,
with
so many
density,
gallons a
based
day
on
that.
density and the waste density versus, is. I don't know how they, how they factor it in,
Sure,
how they bill, but that could, in the interim of maybe a buildup of demand, could utilize that to keep that pipe moving.
Yeah, and how about Excel? Right, Excel is using a ton of water, right? And that's all just dumping off into the stormwater.
I think their water is used cooling water. Primarily, isn't it?
Right, but they're supposed to water all those piles. They're supposed to water all that junk, right? It's gonna have a constant spray on it, and that water now just goes into
Well, they do have that good thing.
that pit, but then I'm wondering if we've accounted for them picking up sewer there.
How could we cover that?
We have to put some drain.
We'd have to know what they're metering, what they're using for, what they're using for gallons of water, because all that water that's going in is gonna come back out. And I think it would be way better to be putting that in the sewer than to be putting that in the ground.
Well, we would-
And I don't know, what,
Some of it goes up in steam. Pressure. the shredder.
right, but I'm just saying, like, right,
Mhm.
like, that's something
But
that,
a lot of it is just dust.
that's,
Right.
right. Just that's control.
But if you
A
can't
lot
do
of, a
that,
lot of dust control is evaporated. I mean, it's basically the same thing in the ground, if they spray it on the ground, it doesn't really go leach into the ground, it evaporates back into the atmosphere.
because it's such a fine.
But there's a lot running off that asphalt area.
Yeah, I haven't viewed it, so
I'm just saying, like, I don't know that we've accounted for Excel because we weren't metering their water until this year, so we would have a sense of what their runoff is, and that might help us in terms of keeping things moving from in the sewer pipe, right? Again, I mean, I don't know the logistics of it, but I gotta tell you, there was not a site, we know there was no site plans done on Excel. And we know that they have a lot of water usage that's just running right now into the storm system or, the environment. So it may be beneficial for us to look at the water usage there to maybe accommodate for that flow in the sewer because it will be better than it going where it's going to.
well, the other thing too is how do we compensate for, fluctuations in days and weekends and, when you're talking industrial, obviously, the American is a 24-hour day, so they're,
Right.
They're nonstop.
Mhm.
The Excel is not.
Right,
That's a-
I'm
that's
not
an
saying, but I'm
8-10
just
hour
saying,
day.
we haven't really talked about Excel, because I really didn't think about Excel. Because prior to earlier this year, we weren't needing that.
well, I will say, if we do utilize the 8, you're gonna have a ton of spare capacity at the pump station. Because as we've talked about, I mean, hydraulics is key. You don't wanna put a low amount of flow in a ductile iron force main. We've all seen it time and time again. Low flows just lead to solids, it leads
Right.
to gas getting build up, and that's when you have a problem. So the last thing I wanna do is give you a pump station that's undersized
Well,
and,
which is why I'm saying to you,
Yeah.
that maybe we look at that, because there may be flow there
Yeah.
that would make a whole lot of sense for us to capture and
Right.
be a win-win, right?
right,
It would keep our flow numbers a little bit more fluid, but also help a situation, I think that might be, it might just be beneficial for the town, for that water not to be flowing,
right.
free flowing.
Yeah, no, and there's certainly an argument to be made based on the cost alone. I mean, there's no doubt about it. The cost of slip line and put these pits in, it's a lot. I mean, you're talking a mile worth of sewer here. And if you could just tie into what's there, there's definitely a thought to consider there. It's just from an engineering perspective, the flows just aren't justifying it right now. So you'd have to essentially oversize your pump station to get that velocity you need
So
to.
what, so I guess I'm looking for pros and cons.
Yeah, that's fine.
If we slip line, it's gonna cost this amount of money, and this is the benefits.
Sure.
And the con is obviously the cost. If we leave it alone and we use the existing 8-inch, the pro is, of course, the cost is cheaper, but this is the con is that. I don't wanna have issues, right? The last thing I want is for the sewer to fail,
Right,
because nobody wants that. It's kind of
Right.
messy business. And I
Right.
don't wanna be dealing with that.
right.
So I would love for you to put together pros and cons, but that's all we'll kind of look at, and I think it's something that possibly the selectmen should weigh in on as well.
Yeah.
Or the sewer commission and stuff.
When was that 8-inch main with that 8-inch line installed?
It was in the early 2000s.
Was done in the 2000s?
Yeah.
I
How
think-
are we coming to being able to use that?
It's there, it's in the
I
road.
don't know, but doesn't the co-part on that?
No, we're talking about the one that Resendes put in.
Oh,
Yeah, there's a 4-inch main that's utilized right now by that Stop and Shop pump station, and then there's a redundant 8-inch main that's right alongside it. That's the one that we'd be talking about.
I know Jim put it on.
It's the one that Jim put in.
Yeah.
The Copart one, I have to go back and discuss with the, selectmen again. I've spoken to them once, but I didn't have the cost. And I was supposed, actually Monday night, I'm gonna be talking to him then again, because I hadn't reviewed my notes before last, Monday's meeting. I'm concerned about using that one for many reasons, but first of all, because we would end up with a dam. But also because of the age of it, and just, we don't know what's under there, and what it is, is it really gonna save us money? Or is it gonna be one of those, like an old house, when you start digging it up, that you find that,
It's been quite a while.
yeah, it's old.
That's an old line.
So I'm almost, I'm inclined to say, no, I don't wanna use that line.
I think the problem with utilizing the fire suppression line and co-part is that has to go before, that has to go before town meeting.
Tell me, yeah,
And it's gonna be very difficult to get the townspeople, three towns. Write a blank check for a dam, which, you know, unless it's a natural disaster, like, you know, a major flood, 100 year, 1,000-year flood comes, with FEMA reimburses us for all the repairs.
Mhm,
With town's gonna be on the hook for that,
right.
and
that's what I'm saying.
I
like,
don't think.
It's a lot of
I-
liability,
The
yeah.
read I get, the feeling I get from people is that they're not gonna be too willing, the dam is there. So
Sure,
the beauty of the dam, we get the benefit of that for free.
Yep.
Because Churchill and Banks
Mhm.
maintains it, and why would we, why buy it and have that liability?
Mhm.
Even, or take it as a gift and have that liability, we get all the benefits of it for free.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's a tough step, it's
I
a
think
very,
we're
it's a
all,
very
I think
hard
we're all
sell.
on the same page with it. I just think sometimes, it's easy not to where it hasn't, failed in my lifetime. But this doesn't mean it won't, especially with the way the weather is changing and the storms are changing. A dam is just a liability that no town wants. It's just not, and I've tried to reiterate that with the selectmen. It's not what, I'd rather have a quantifiable expense of running the line. We know this is gonna cost us $3 million. Than having a dam that we have no idea what the end result could be if it fails. We don't know, we can't quantify that expense.
Mhm.
Even the maintenance,
Yeah, the maintenance, it has been all kept up, it gets inspected, it does all that, but that again is for the selectmen and the town meeting, but I think. I think the selectmen are going to vote, I don't know, but I would guess that, I'm gonna bring it before them, but. I've sort of just gone on the premise because of. If we knew exactly what we had and what it meant, that's one thing, but we don't. We said we're gonna have to go down there with cameras, try to figure it out. It's 100 years old, it could break. I don't know how old it is, right? But it's old, like, who knows what we got?
Right,
Like,
a lot of
let's just-
uncertainty.
Let's just not deal with that.
And again, if need be, that Churchill and Banks line is, how old is that?
That's the line you're talking about.
How old is that?
I don't know.
Yeah.
way back,
Forties or the fifties?
what is 50,
Or I would think, so,
I don't know.
that's 60 or 70 years old.
Right.
And when if you slip line that, what do we slip on lining it with?
It would be HDP, or
Yeah,
fusible
so, I mean,
PVC, something of that
But,
nature, yeah.
depending on if there's movement in the ground around that, if it's been undermined in places.
Yeah, I mean-
What's without.
Well, the benefit of that was getting under Route 24, right? That was
Right.
the benefit of being able to get under that overpass, but I mean. Eversource did. I mean, I don't know, I think we just get under Route 24, we do what
Yeah.
we gotta do, we file the permits and we do it.
I mean, it's not moving heaven and earth to do an access permit and going across there. Obviously, they're gonna require you to do the flowable fill, and they're gonna require you to do the full curb to curb restoration, and, you know, I think that's kind of understood, but I think ultimately, like we've all said, the uncertainty of dealing with an old main like that, plus taking on the dam and, you know, working with DCR and all that, just ends up being a little bit more than it's
And what happens when
One
you go to
deal with
slip line and if there's a problem with the Route 24?
exactly.
Now that whole project is dead stop.
Right. I agree with you. I mean, like I said, I think this is something that we kind of batted back and forth, but I mean, we,
Just leave it out in the left field.
yeah, we kind of discussed it, but it's just not, it just doesn't make the most sense. It's with a project of this magnitude, with the cost of this project, to try to save a very little, you know, some in percentage wise for the whole project, you know, maybe 5 or 10% of this project. And what could possibly go wrong with it and what it would cost us down the line isn't worth it, in my opinion. I don't think, I don't want the dam. I don't want the liability of the dam. I don't want the liability of the unknown pipe that when we're trying to slip line it and then it breaks and now we're digging the road up anyway.
Right,
We didn't budget for that, we didn't put it in, so now I've got the funding issue, right, if things start to go haywire on a. I mean, there's contingencies, but sometimes they're not enough, as if you've ever done anything. I'm always running 20% over my budget with
Mhm.
grants and whatnot, so I try to account for that. I don't like it, but at the end of the day, you know, I think it's still gonna be the sewer commissioners and or the selectmen that make that ultimate decision, but, I'm gonna say my thought process is we don't plan on using that, which is what we've kind of gone forward with it.
yeah, and I know we gave you that email that kind of gave you our thoughts and the comparison on the cost, so I think that's a little more cut and dry. I mean, we can put together the pros and cons of utilizing that 8-inch main.
The 8-inch is the
Um,
one that's newer. I think
correct.
It's probably.
Yeah.
Still a viable
Yeah,
pipe.
no, and like I said, I want to give you something that's gonna work, you know, I don't want to say, you know, give you something that's designed for the flows today and it's too small, it's undersized. You know, we can do an oversized pump station, just understanding that, hey, it's gonna be a much bigger station than what you guys necessarily need there.
So that too, give me the difference in the size, and
Sure.
the difference in the cost, of the two stations and what it would be to run those two stations. right?
Sure.
Just the best you can. I mean,
Sure.
nothing can be perfect, but at least it gives me some data to give to the boards, both the sewer and water commissioners and the selectmen to make decisions.
Yeah, and I think if we can get you that information, you know, within the next week or two here. Ideally, we'd like to have an answer, you know, at some point in February, because we want to move forward and get the
Yep.
design going, right? So. You know, I think the original schedule for MassWorks talked about having like 75% by the end of June, so we just want to make sure we're sticking to that schedule, you know, and get you what you need, so. So yeah, Will and I will work on that and put that in writing.
I have to look at when the money's up for MassWorks.
I think it was extended to 25. I know our scope is extended to 25, but
Some of that's being paid out.
ARPA, yeah, right,
I'll look.
Okay.
I do, I do the reports, but.
sure,
So the 8-inch main that Resendes put in.
Yeah.
Does not go on the 24.
correct. It stops just short of
That
it.
is just short.
Yep.
So, you know, we're talking about. The problem is utilizing that 8-inch main is too large. What's our option if we were to put an adequate plus say 30 or 40% pump station and 30% pump station for future development? And slip line that section. We could later remove the slip line. If the demand came into play, is that a viable alternative?
It could, but then you're talking about probably having to do something around those utility crossings, like the streams and, I mean, because you can't slip line underneath like a stream crossing or a brook crossing. I mean, you're talking about multiple 45s, so you'd have to do either open cut there.
Oh, so they're not, it's not. a great
No, it's got some funky crossings. I think there's that rattlesnake brook that
Rattlesnake.
goes there. I know,
The Resendes line doesn't go under Rattlesnake.
it does.
Does.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Resenti's line starts at, is it 56 South Main? He had told us at one of the meetings he'd come to where he started.
Yeah, that's 125 something in that snake.
Yeah,
I used to own that.
let me see. It was in one of the meeting minutes.
Yeah, obviously you can't slip lane up until a point, not slip lane in that section.
Yeah. Well, because Jim was even saying, he's like, you might be able to do like a 2 or 3 inch main underneath those areas, but again, you're talking. Not giving you enough capacity. So, yeah, he said the inactive main starts at 76 South Main and runs all the way to the manhole in front of the Stop and Shop station, and then from there continues down to the what we call SMH 20, which is the last manhole before you get into Fall River. So.
And just with Debbie, that 8 inch main that's under the road is basically, it's abandoned pipe that we
Right.
take, correct?
But it's never been inspected. I was just gonna ask that, it's never been inspected, I mean, it was put in and not inspected by the town. Are you guys okay with using it?
Can we do an internal inspection?
Well, that's what I would suggest. If we were gonna
Or try
utilize
to
that,
verify it?
Camera.
put a camera in inside and then pressure test it.
Right.
Because we'd want to make sure that it can hold pressure before we
It's a
start.
viable alternative.
Exactly, and we've done that on a number of jobs where we've had existing pipes in
When
the
should we
ground.
do that? Because we're,
That'd be part of the contract. So we would recommend doing it as part of the scope. Like as far as putting a camera in, because you're gonna have to have the contractor go out, put the camera in, probably
okay,
have,
but what if it doesn't work?
I think
What if
it,
fails?
I think as far as that goes, we'd probably have to put some sort of contingency in there as far as point repairs. Having something in the contract to handle it, because right now you're talking about, if you're gonna put a camera in, you can't camera from point A to point B, you probably have to do pits in between. Just because, you have all these crossings and everything, so, you're gonna want. A camera contractor to go in there, camera sections of it, make sure it's all intact, and then. Ideally, do a pressure test before you start.
Our ground penetrating radar won't do that.
Ground penetrating radar will give you the position of it, but it won't tell you anything about the inside condition. I mean, it's ductile iron, class 52, hadn't been touched in 10-15 years. I mean, I can't imagine if no water's getting inside, it should be fine, but,
It's dry.
right,
It should be fine.
right.
Yeah, they're
So-
designed to last 100 years.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. I think it's, but again,
When I mean, Kenny, KRS knows what they're doing.
right,
It's not like they never put in sewer line.
right. I'm assuming they use proper backfill material and, again, they do this for a living, so I'm not questioning that.
They
piece.
would not have put that in.
Yeah.
With some intention for future use, and put it in run. Wasn't
Right,
just-
that's what I
They
mean,
didn't
like-
put it in the ground to get rid of old pipe.
Exactly,
This isn't
exactly.
like some, fly by night operation.
Right.
They do know what they're doing. So I
Right.
do have confidence that it is fine.
Right,
But I'm just, always the planner, like, what if, like, okay.
Sure.
Again.
Sure.
Before, I like to do a lot of planning so that when we get to construction phase, it's just do it.
right.
And enough contingencies come up, even when a project's run well, that I don't want major problems.
I'll give you an example. Right now, we have a contract out in construction. It's in Barnstable. They have a 8 inch and a 14 inch ductile iron main, both installed in 2007, 2008. They've been utilizing the 8, but they put the 14 in knowing that in the future, they're gonna have all this expansion and have to eventually utilize that. As part of the contract that we put on the street, we have it as part of the contractor scope to camera, inspect, and pressure test that line. So that way, it's part of their scope. They own it, and then if they find something, we have a contingency or an allowance in there to be able to address a point repair, or if they have to make a fix. So that'd be my recommendation, Deb, just because it's not something that necessarily we would do, like a subcontracted type of thing. You'd almost want that work kind of overseen by a general contractor in case there was a repair that had to be made.
Alright.
So,
Got it.
but yeah, we'll put that together, the pros and cons, and move forward on that.
What material is Jim's pipe?
Ductile iron. It's class 52.
Nowadays, they're all using
Plastic.
plastic.
Yeah, we typically use a lot of DR18, DR25, on the plastic side. And again, a lot of it's just for corrosion, you don't see the exterior corrosion, with that. It's more, it's an inept material or a inert material. So it's not affected by the off gassing from wastewater and all that. So,
What are we proposing on installing here?
This would be, well, it'd be a combination of PVC and HDP, but in this case, because we'd be utilizing the 8, if we go that route, we'd just be using PVC. We wouldn't have to use HDP for slip lining. We use the HDP typically in slip lining applications. But yeah, it would just be bell and spigot PVC.
Okay.
So I think we talked enough about the force main. The only other thing to bring up on the preliminary design is we did get the geotech memo over to you guys. That was finalized. We got all the boring logs. We got the groundwater information. So we do have monitoring wells at both pump station sites. So we'll be able to collect routine groundwater readings. And that's always just good information to have, just so whoever's doing the work understands where groundwater is. So we have that. We'll include that as part of the final report. I think we gave you the draft report. We can update it based on what we ultimately decide on the 8, but we do have that geotech report just for the record. So we have that documented. So I think just moving ahead, we'll put that list of pros and cons together. If we can get an answer back on that, like I said, Deb, sometime next month, so that way we can stay on schedule with the design. We can wrap up the first phase here and then move forward with this work. So, I can target, I would say maybe give us like a week or 2 to get that information to you. Is
We have
that
a selectmen's meeting on the 20th and I.
20th? Okay.
The next meeting, the commissioners and. Maybe we'll have a meeting from the committee if we need to as well.
Yeah. So why don't we target get you something before the 20th? And that way you're prepared when you go into your meeting. I think that was pretty much everything here. We talked about the dam. Yes.
Yeah.
And then I guess the only other thing was just the contract amendment. I talked to Margot. She mentioned something about having Merrill do some right of way for you at Four Corners. Having them pick that up.
Yeah.
So I can update that
I'm sorry,
amendment.
I'm looking at this repair work of 40,000 to 143,000. I don't know that, but I think that may be under the dam.
Yeah, no, that was under the dam. That was part of that GCA
We
report.
just need
Yeah.
some more detailed surveys, whatever Margot had said. and
Okay.
I'm gonna add that to my quote, so I can get that funded through ARPA.
Sure. So I know she was working with Merrill, who we did the
Yeah.
survey with, so he just waiting to give us a price. So I can resend that over once I have it.
Yeah, so I mean, I haven't applied, I need to apply soon because they're closing out on monies. And it's been difficult to get ARPA monies lately.
Okay. When do we want to try to target our next meeting here? Do you want to shoot for the,
Early March? End of February, early March?
I got a meeting the 28th at 1, so maybe we can do the 6th, if that works, Victoria.
Just maybe.
Let me just check the police station availability in a second.
That's February 6th. March 6th, I should. So you're on track, timeline wise?
Yeah, I think as long as we get an answer on the 8, we can wrap up the basic design and then roll right into final design. Because right now we're still targeting that June 2024 date to get you 75% plans and specs. But
Is it June of 25? We're looking for permits and
I think permits we had the beginning of February. It really, we can't start filing those permits until we have a plan to give them. So, I probably, like I said, probably in the summertime is the earliest we would start going for the permits and getting that rolling. But as far as actually getting the design plans, yeah, really just for us, for our purposes, we just want to know, hey, if we're going to use the 8, that's fine. We just want to know upfront so we can plan to design the pumps and all
thinking
that.
about funding sources and where I'm getting money
Sure.
from and where I have to apply for my grants and, federal funds take longer than state funds, so I'm just, trying to see where we're gonna land, so I know when to start.
Sure.
Monies.
So March 6th, we're talking about, right?
Yeah,
Okay, so the police station is available if we're still doing the 2 o'clock.
okay.
So does that date work with everyone? March 6th at 2?
What day of the week
Can't
is it?
hear you.
Oh, March 6th at 2 for our next meeting. That's a Wednesday.
What day, a number?
March sixth.
Did you wanna do something later to try to grab Steve Trick? Or no?
I will reach out to him today, this afternoon. see if
We
he's
can do
still
a Zoom
interested.
option.
Sure. Yeah, whatever works.
Stick to. We on?
March sixth works for me, so.
Okay.
Yeah, and if Steve wants to chime in as far as feedback, I'm all ears, you know, we wanna give you guys what works for you and that's efficient, so. If he has any ideas on preferences, we're happy to hear them out.
And yeah, if you talk to Steve and, you know, we wanna change the time, I'll make sure I coordinate with everyone and make sure it's a time that works for everyone.
Yep,
Are we gonna plan for 2 o'clock, is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we'll plan for 2 o'clock now, and then if Steve wants to join and he can't make that time, maybe we can do a Zoom later on or something like that.
All right. Sounds good.
Okay.
Do you have anything else on our agenda for this meeting?
Yes, just minutes. I don't know if everyone had a chance to review them,
I did not see them.
so we can do it next time, that's not a problem. Yeah, and that was it for us. Do you guys have anything else to add, or?
no, like I said, we'll put together that list of pros and cons for you, before your meeting on the 20th and. You know, look forward to moving forward either way, so.
Good job. Well, adjourn,
Yes, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
make that motion.
I make a motion. for order.
I did that. All in favor? Aye.
Okay, I'll second this motion.
Okay, thanks.
All right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.